And it is that time once again. It's your weekly monkey business, and I am your host. This is Chris in the studios at WFC3. With me, as always, the irrepressible Billy DeTore.
Hi.
The somewhat legendary Tanya Metris.
Hello.
Our producer, the effervescent, I like that word, isn't it? That's a good word.
It's an
Sherry
awesome word.
Elbersky.
Very bubbly.
Hello.
And her associate producer, Christopher Spank. Hello, Christopher.
Hello.
Hello. Do we say it? Let's say it. Well, hello, Dolly.
Well, hello, Dolly.
She's in the studio again with us tonight.
Hello,
honey. Yes. And our Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, or Rosenplants and Guildenfern, whichever
Yes.
you prefer.
Rosenstern and Guildenkrantz.
That's it. Zach and Rob are in the house today.
Hi.
So, I know, seriously. The more people we stack into the studio, the longer this is going. It's like half the podcast is going to be introducing the round table.
And then coming up with new catchy phrases.
New catchy phrases for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. That's a thing. So right off the bat, we're going to start doing some things just a little bit differently. We're starting to get some folks for shout-outs and some folks who are doing advertising and whatnot. So we're going to start with a little business up front. We're going to do our advertising up front. I just want to give a quick nod to our perennial sponsors, Knox. The comfort food and
Craft
geek,
cocktails.
and craft cocktails, the ultimate geek bar at the Village Gate Mall. So thank you guys.
They now have a new event space that can hold about 60 people
Oh
comfortably.
boy,
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
And
So plan your next event there.
There you go. And they have been an avid supporter of ours since the beginning. So a big shout out to Knox and the crew, and we're looking forward to being there at an event soon.
That's where I met you guys.
Isn't
Yes,
it?
it
Yeah,
was.
that's right. So where we had our first hangout was at
Great
Knox.
dinner, great food.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. We have our meetings there sometimes. So the big shout out there, and in the studio later today will be. My bouncing baby boy is going to be joining us in a little bit with he's bringing one of his teachers in. So a big shout out to Pat Best from the University Preparatory School. So he's going to be joining us in the studio
Just
a little
a
bit later.
note, let's be really foul.
Oh, I know. Seriously.
Let's embarrass your kid a lot.
So we're going to be like just dropping South Park
And
at
that's
this point.
different from any other day. How?
Okay. Good, excellent point.
We're just going to up
Years
the notch.
of experience.
Years of experience.
Up it a little bit.
And everybody watch the FC3 page. The guest announcements are coming.
They're coming.
We have signed two?
One currently.
One? We've signed one? Okay.
I'm waiting for the other contract.
And so we are on the verge of starting the sequence of guest announcements for the 2018 show. So look for that. That is good stuff, and it's very exciting.
The agent's currently hanging out with Stan Lee in Las Vegas,
Oh,
Los
poor
Angeles.
guy.
I know. This
Our
weekend.
poor guy. Oh, and I know this popped up recently, so just make sure everybody's aware of it. It is a hoax. Ian McKellen, the actor of Gandalf and Magneto, is still with us at the age of 78.
At least as of this recording.
As of this recording.
Right.
Perfectly.
There was a huge internet hoax or Facebook hoax yesterday.
He got killed
Yeah.
off yesterday in a death hoax again. Those seem to be circulating around, but we
It was
checked
like
our sources.
2015, 2017,
Yep.
maybe 2019.
Right.
They'll try it again.
Yeah, seriously. But we checked our sources and made sure that is accurate information. Ian is still with us, thankfully, and hopefully will be for quite some time to come.
And there's going to be another Ian here later.
Yes, my bouncing baby boy Ian, who's not named after Ian McKellen.
No,
But it was still
not as tall as Ian McKellen.
Well, he's taller actually than Ian McKellen. So, all right. Anyway, moving on. We have on the studio, or not on the studio, on the studio. He's standing up on the 17th floor. We're on the 16th.
On the FC3 hotline.
Then on the FC3 hotline, we have a gentleman by the name of Kevin Volo. Kevin has been an avid comic book reader and collector since he was 12 years old. He has worked in comic shops, consulted with collectors, and even started a business selling comics at conventions with his son. He's a comic book colorist who's worked on projects ranging from freelance DC work to numerous independent titles, including the Eisner Award-nominated Meteor Men. He is also a professional photographer, videographer, and website developer, as well as an instructional technologist. And that's a great word. I'm going to ask him about that one in a moment. And designer helping university faculty develop online courses based on best practices in adult education. Welcome to the podcast, Kevin Volo.
Hello.
Yay. How are you, sir?
Where's the applause?
We got to work on our applause track. Do we have that? Can we fire that off real quick?
Applause track. Oh.
No pressure, Kevin.
We've
no
got
pressure.
lots of stuff that we can do for you today.
I'm telling you.
And it's cold up on the 17th floor, so you need to put the heat on up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll get extra blankets out for
we
you.
strive for professionalism and fail miserably, but we at least try to have fun doing it. So Kevin, First of all, right off the top of the bat, something nice and innocuous. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing good. It is a nice, cold, rainy fall day here in upstate New York. So,
I know.
Standards
Yesterday
par
I'm
for the
out
course.
riding a bike in shorts and a T-shirt, and today I've got a fleece on.
There you go. See, these are the things we have to deal with. It was just 90, like, what, a week and a half ago? It was almost 90?
Yeah.
Now, are
Yeah.
you in New York State also?
I am.
Fantastic. He's local, within reason.
He's near us.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He teaches at the college that our daughter goes to.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
All right.
That's how we know him, because last year he did a talk on creating comic books that Monkey Girl went to, and when we started working with you guys, she's like, "You've got to get Kevin Volo. He was amazing."
So here we are.
Now, did I read somewhere that you went to RIT?
I did.
You did.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
went for,
So that's
I went
local to
RIT
us.
for commercial photography and graphic design.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, way back.
All right. So when we've talked about comic books recently, and Billy is an avid collector.
Yes,
I'm an avid collector. Well, I'm not as avid as I used to be, but I'm still into it. What was it that kind of drew you to comic books in the first place? What was one of those things? It was not just a throwaway. It was something that you really found a lot of interest in.
You know, the funny thing is, a lot of times people don't even remember, maybe like what the first comic they ever read was, and for some reason, I just remember. I don't know how it got there. In my grandmother's house, there was a copy of Devil Dinosaur #2. Not even
wow.
#1, just #2. It was just there, and I tell you what, I read that before I could even read it. I think I read that thing cover to cover until I literally wore it out. And I don't know. It's just the art. It was a story about some kid, and or not really a kid, kind of like a weird little whatever, But
Yeah.
it was just really. I don't know. They just really they really spoke to me. And then as I got older, I just loved the stories. I mean, I was a really big reader and still am, and was interested in photography and art even at that early age. So see how you tell stories with just the images, and then you threw a few words in there to sort of help it out. Just really, I just really dug it.
Very cool. Now, is there a particular title that's like your jam right now? Is something that you have to make sure you get in the pull list at any given moment in time?
The few that I put on the top of the pile to read would be I would say Invincible by Robert Kirkman.
Okay, heard of it.
I'm liking that. Royal Fam. Is it Royal? Royal City by he's a Canadian. I can't believe I'm blanking on him. He's my favorite writer right now.
We're looking it up.
He's totally gone out of my brain.
That's all right. I don't think that's what you had in mind there, Tanya.
When did you first become a collector, and do you tend to go back to older issues, like of what you consider your golden era of reading comics, whether it be kid, teenager, young adult, whatever?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I had this one comic book forever, and then I think I had one or two. Spider-Man would show up, or something would show up. Maybe an uncle dropped it off. I don't know. But then I think it was around, probably middle school, 7th grade, 8th grade. I started. There were no shops in the area, so my uncle had a cigar store in town. So I would get a comic book after, church on Sunday, and then I'd start just going in there and picking them up. And it really wasn't, though, until probably, I want to say 9th grade or 10th grade that I really started, really buying books. I bought my first collection, probably, I think it was about 10 boxes, long boxes.
Wow.
From somebody who was getting married and needed to get rid of them. And I saw the ad in the paper, and that started it. And the major... most of the collection was like 3 or 4 boxes of Amazing Spider-Man, Silver Age stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah, oh God. Yeah, well, this was, 80 whatever, 2. I mean, they weren't worth anything. No one really cared. So I guess when I go back to things, I go back to like Kirby stuff, like Devil Dinosaur and some earlier Spideys and stuff like that. A lot of seems to be like a lot of Marvel Marvel stuff.
Because my big collection, I first started collecting in the mid-'70s, early to mid-'70s. And right now, even though I have a current pull list and there's certain comics I get every month, I tend to love to find older Superman and Batman and Justice League comics. So that stuff, it just makes me feel good. Just the way they feel and smell, the old comics from the 70s.
And it's kind of part of the process. It's not just the art and it's not just the stories, but there's a kind of a tangible thing to them.
It makes me feel good to see the old ads and the old letter pages from that era.
Yeah, the letter pages are great. And I collect original art, too. So I've always been looking for, like, the original art to some of those Hostess ads, like, where it shows Batman and Superman, like, eating a Twinkie or something. You cannot find that stuff anywhere. But, I love the old advertising in there. Who didn't want X-ray glasses, right?
Seriously.
Exactly.
I mean, those were the best. I mean, I could see right through my hand when I put them on.
Right.
Now, how does it transition that you become a collector into getting involved in the industry? How did that journey happen for you?
Well, I've been collecting and buying collections and selling collections, and I was just really interested in the creative process. I was writing some comics for fun for myself, and of course, doing photography and fooling around with doing, those like sort of photographic comic books, and then bringing them into Photoshop and really, really sort of tweaking the photographs. But I just, I didn't really. I don't know, it really wasn't doing it for me, and I can't draw.
I'm bad at it too.
Seemed kind of boring, but I like to paint, so I said I'm going to try coloring. It's similar to painting. I like to paint. I can paint. I'm going to give that a try. And then it was just really a process of, this was the early 90s, mid 90s, and there wasn't a lot of stuff on the web. I was lucky enough to find this great message board called, Colorists Unite. And they would have little homework assignments, and they'd post a page, and everyone would color it and turn it in, and we'd critique it and stuff, and it was an amazing resource. And, some of the colorists on there are, like Laura Martin, who's like one of the greatest colorists there is. And all these just amazing colorists, and they would just help you. And then over time, I just kept practicing, and I started out as a flatter for hi-fi, and that's the process of. There's a couple different processes. The line art goes out, and it gets flatted, so each shape gets filled with a flat color.
Oh, okay, all right. And that adds layers and depth, am I assuming, or
no? It's literally just for the colorist to then easily be able to go into and select that shape.
Oh, okay.
Because then they can select it, fill it with like a. So you'd get a face, let's say, and you'd select all the way around the face and inside of the line, and you'd fill it with a kind of a flesh tone. You'd select the hair, color blonde.
Okay.
Then the colorist gets it and says, okay, I'm going to just use my magic lasso or magic wand to quick, boom, select the face, fill it with the right color, skin color. Boom, click the hair, fill it with the right color hair, and then they can go ahead and render.
Okay.
And what that then also allows them to do, let's say they made a mistake, that layer is saved, that flatting layer. They can go back and easily select the face and sort of re-render it or add something to it. So it's a tedious and horrible process because you literally are clicking in between the lines and filling in every single shape on a page.
Okay.
And it's horrible. So I did that first.
Okay. And then where does that evolve to when you're done, basically paying your dues at that level? What was the next step?
Well, the next step was getting, again, it was hard to find some online at the time, but finding line arts that was high enough resolution. If you could print it out, it would look okay. And getting these pages and coloring them myself and for fun and for practice. And then going to shows and showing your portfolio. If you go to certain message boards that were looking for comic book work, you could email them your work, and then slowly over time, I was able to pick up a small gig here and there, and then it just sort of goes on from there. You meet somebody, and then you go on and on and on until you start being able to color for bigger companies.
Gotcha. Excuse me. That one caught me off guard. Sorry about that. And so now you've worked for, as I'm seeing here, and I said in the original write-up, freelance DC work and numerous independent titles. Tell me about Meteor Men.
Oh, that was a great book. Sandy Gerald, the artist on that, and he's doing a lot of stuff with like Archie and stuff like that right now. Mm-hmm. He did just finish like Black Canary. He's a fantastic artist, and I had met him in North Carolina when I lived there, and so we sort of kept in touch because we were both into comics, same kind of era stuff, mm-hmm. Kirby and whatnot, and so we kept up, and we had done a little project earlier that it didn't really sort of ended up going to print. And he said, Jeff Parker and I are working on this thing. We've been working on it for a year or so. Would you be interested in coloring it? And, I was like, to be able to get with Jeff Parker, who is such an incredible writer, and Sandy, who I love, art-wise, I said totally. And the other good thing is it didn't need to be I didn't have to have like X amount of pages in a day, mm-hmm. because that's one of the main reasons I really couldn't sort of make the jump to be doing more like DC work or Marvel work, because it's very demanding.
Yeah.
The colorist is usually the last to get the thing. I'd get 10 pages. I had a full-time job. I'd be up all night coloring, and so I had to sort of pull back on it. So this project was, was perfect.
Okay. And then fit in. It fit in everything. That's cool.
Fit in.
All right.
Fit in everything. It was great.
Good deal. All right. Now
it's a fun book.
Okay.
I own them actually. I'm a fan.
Rob, you've got Meteor Men?
Yep.
Okay.
Good stuff.
And it's one of your favorites.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
So do you have any questions for Kevin?
I just like the book.
Okay. The little adulation never hurts either. All right.
I like the book, too.
I hope so. I'm definitely going to have to pick that one up. I like it when we have somebody on and they suggest something that I haven't heard or I'm not really familiar with, so I put it on my list of things I'm going to experience. And that's just one of the great things about this podcast is I've learned more about other things than I think that I've actually educated people on. The more you know. And knowing's half the battle. All right.
Thanks, Flint.
You beat me to it.
It did. I did. I'm sorry. I steamrolled that one.
It was in my head.
It was in all our heads.
I had to.
So I have a couple of other legitimate questions, things that I want to go on. But really, an instructional technologist, what the heck is that? What is an instructional technologist?
Doesn't it? I love it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great title.
Yeah, it's a great title. That's why I took the job.
Okay.
This is the title. That was it. No. It really fit in my wheelhouse. I mean, I've always been interested and good at technology and picking up technology mm-hmm. and finding solutions for it.
Okay.
And I've taught, in classrooms and especially online since I lived in North Carolina. And when I came back up here, I got my master's, and it was in instructional design and technology, and then I was able to get this job at the school. So what I do is I help faculty members integrate technology into the classroom, into their online and even in-person classes, and then I also help them develop their online courses. So just because let's say you're teaching English 101 in the classroom, and then you're going to teach it online. Mm-hmm. It isn't just like I'm going to hit a button and all that stuff's just going to be there. But there's a different flow of how you get the information out and how you organize it and how it's structured that, we help them do.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. It's a really fun gig. I like it.
Now, this is kind of a chicken or an egg kind of a thing. Were you into that and then kind of got the inspiration to do your own online course, or were you working on the online course already and then this kind of evolved from it?
Yeah, no, I've always been teaching and then creating my own courses for when I'm teaching. So like when I was in North Carolina, I taught graphic design and Flash stuff. So you'd have to put a course together to mm-hmm. teach that. Here I teach the same kind of stuff, video editing. And I was talking with someone, and they were like, well, and what the course you're talking about it's a course called Learn to Grade Comic Books mm-hmm. that I did. It's online. And it's not an easy process. It's not an easy thing to grade your comic. And a lot of the stuff out there, they're just like a picture of the cover, maybe one picture of the inside. And, a lot of times that's not enough. There's a lot of other factors you've got to look at. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and, with the vast amount of time I have, free time, I'm going to go ahead and spend, hours and hours a night recording video and editing.
Free time, so, what is that? I've heard of this free time that you speak of.
So, a little bit of both.
Okay, and this is learntogradecomicbooks.com. That's where you centered that particular project? Okay.
Yep.
And how long have you been working on Learn to Grade that particular, that website?
That took, the site was fairly, easy to set up once I had it designed and sort of mapped out. Then it's just sort of a question of building it. This thing that took the most time was getting the supplies together. So, for example, I bought graded books, like CGC graded books, from 0.5 to 10. The 10's actually not a CGC thing. I think it's a PXG or a CBCS. And because I wanted a baseline to say, so in the videos I show you the CGC 0.5, let's say, and all the reasons why they graded it 0.5.
Okay.
And then we look at two other books that are also graded 0.5 that I graded myself and had some other graders in my, look over too, because they're not always going to be the same. 1.5 doesn't look anything like maybe another 0.5.
Okay.
So
finding that consistency? Finding those benchmarks?
Yeah, it took, it took a long time just because, you're shooting, and just for taping sometimes, I've got, hours, maybe 2 hours on a 0.5 video, and then that's edited down to 35, 40 minutes.
Right.
So that took a lot of time to shoot the video, to edit the video. But it was great because I got to look at all these great old books, and it was fantastic. It was fun.
What was the coolest comic book you've ever held and had a chance to kind of go through and grade?
Oh.
No, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Trust me on that. Nah.
Well, one of my favorite covers of is, and I'm blanking on the number. I'm bad at that. I think it's 39. It's The Amazing Spider-Man. It was the first John Romita cover where Peter's sort of hanging out off the back of the glider, the Goblin's glider, and his mask is off.
Oh wow! Okay,
I love that cover, and that's one of the ones I grade in the class on learntogradecomicbooks.com. So to see that and have it in a pretty good condition, I was really psyched.
Very cool. There you go. That is a piece of comic book history right there. And
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tanya.
In regards to the 10-point grading scale, is that consistent across all the comic book grading companies, or does each company have their own 10-point grading scale?
No, they pretty much go off of the Overstreet or the Overstreet's grading scale. You can see if you pick up an Overstreet's price guide, those big, thick sort of tomes, their scale is pretty much the standard. Some people interpret it, and that's the thing. It's not an exact science. It's for example, you could send a book in to CGC. I'm just using them because they're the most popular, and they could grade it at a 4.0, and you get it back. You could crack that, send it back to them, the same book, and a different group of graders, because it's not just the same one, will look at it, and they might think this crease knocks it down a little bit more, or that crease isn't a big deal, and you might get it back at either maybe a 3.5 or a 5.
Oh, okay.
So there's sort of a one standard thing from Overstreet's, but it's how it's interpreted.
It's subject to whoever's currently grading it at that point based on the rubric or whatever they're...
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's going to be close. You're not going to send one into CGC and it be a 4.0, send it back in, and it's going to be a 6.0. That won't happen.
Zach's making fun of me when I use the word rubric. I'm sorry, I'm a teacher. Leave me alone.
Yeah,
well,
Zach
when
was
you
also
said rubric, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, it's so and just like grading essays and exams and things like that. It's so I might not know how to grade comics because that's totally above my head, but I can understand the concept when grading exams and things like that based on a scale.
Now, does Beckett acquiring the CBCS service, will that affect, I mean, how does that affect, say, CBCS versus CGC? Will that put their, like CGC has always been sort of the gold standard and the one everybody goes to, with CBCS being the sort of up-and-coming grading company? Will Beckett's acquiring of CBCS affect that in any way, do you think?
That's something, who knows. CBCS is getting to be obviously more and more popular and more of a trusted company. I've got probably just as many CBCS books as CGC books, and when I look at them through their cases, I don't, they look exactly like I think they should look. I've never seen one and said, "Wow, this is wildly off." They're in time. The longer they're around, they're just going to gain in respect, and people aren't going to think, "Oh, I just need to get a CGC." It also has to do with resale. I mean, when you put a book up on eBay, let's say, or at a show, but especially on eBay, it's crazy. If it's in a CGC, graded case, it's usually they're asking twice what it's really worth, because they know it's that condition.
You must get into some pretty spectacular debates with people sometimes, because you'll have one guy who's probably going to give something an 8 or a 9, and you're like, no, it's like a 6 or 7. Do you find that kind of conversation happens often?
Most of the time, if you're talking with someone who can say, "Oh, this is like a 6 or a 7," and I say, "No, it's a 4." The people that really know how to grade the book, they're obviously going to be closer to what it really is. But it happens a lot. I mean, not so much with me right now because I'm not working in a comic shop, but I remember when I used to work in a comic shop, people come in and they always think their book is much higher than it is.
It's almost like Pawn Stars.
The guy says, yeah.
Like Pawn Stars, the guy comes in and goes, "Well, what do you want for the item?" "I want 10,000. The item's worth like 500. Wait, what?
Right. I didn't hear what you said. Yeah, that makes, it's about...
Not porn stars. Pawn.
Pawn.
I mean, we could talk about porn stars, but that's an entirely different podcast. So, sorry about that.
Family friendly.
Rating porn stars?
Yeah.
Another episode?
That's another episode.
And
where
your
we're
underage son is about to enter the studio, so we should probably stay away from that one.
He's heard worse. He's heard podcasting planning meetings. It's not a good thing. All right. So anyway, to circle back to what we were talking about, though.
Yeah.
Did you see that he builds cosplay stuff?
He builds cosplay stuff?
Yes.
That's like what kind of costume pieces?
Yeah, like
3D printed.
Oh my God, that's awesome! Like wings and horns.
I got the bug.
Like Star-Lord belt or something that I.
Oh, very cool.
Looked.
Yeah, I'm putting together a Star-Lord cosplay costume right now. So I just finished the helmet, which I'm pretty proud of. It turned out really well. And I use a 3D printer. I use foam, some fabric, but mostly 3D printed. And the YouTube channel is called 3D Printed Props. So
okay.
Where do you get the foam? I've been looking for it. I'm trying to get into like cosplaying and building my own costumes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can get for the thicker stuff. You just use those interlocking sort of mats that you can get at Lowe's.
Never thought about
next to nothing. Yeah, you can get that stuff. The thinner stuff you can get at at Michael's or whatnot, where it's 3 millimeter, and I think they sell maybe 6 millimeter there, and 2 millimeter. You can get it there. And then once you sort of move up the scale and you want like a heavier duty foam, because some of that craft foam is can be a little flimsy. You can go to companies like there's a great company called, what is it called? TNTcosplay.com, I believe.
Okay.
And I just put an order in there that you get those at 24 by 36 or 18 by 24 sheets, and it's really great quality stuff.
Awesome.
And then you just craft from there. Have a good old time
making
stuff.
You make patterns. You cut it out. You glue it. Use a lot of contact cement, and make sure you wear your respirator, or lines start getting crooked. Because of all.
He's not worried about anything else other than his lines getting crooked. Did you notice that? That's
not the brain cells.
We're not worried about brain cells. We're not worried about the ability to speak. We're just the lines have got to be straight. So
need a straight line.
Of course.
If you've used contact cement and put two things together and they didn't stick together the first time, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Changing gears again because
that's what we do.
A stream of thought, a lovely direct line is not something we're capable of. I've got a line here. His village attacked, his father taken, a boy stands alone, all seems lost until a good deed brings him an unlikely ally, a dragon. Am I in the right ballpark? Is this something you're familiar with? Tell me a little bit more about Max and Thorn. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It was like, you've mentioned your child. Every night we'd crawl in bed and we'd read and read and read. And then some nights when you're tired and your eyes you can't read anymore, you just start telling stories.
Yes, so, I've done that. I've done that.
Yeah, my son's name is Max.
Okay.
And we just started telling stories. And, they evolved into this dragon and I named him Thorn just because of the first story I told. It was sort of like a fable, the thorn in the paw, that kind of thing.
Okay, very cool.
So, yeah, and then it just went from there. We'd sort of add a little bit more here and there, and then I just started writing it.
That's great.
Fleshing it out more, and he'd be the editor, because I'd say, oh, this person gets killed. He's like, no, that is not going to happen.
No, that's not. So you had an editor working over your shoulder telling you to where to go with the story.
Pretty much. And the dad gets hurt. Nope, you're not going to get hurt because I'm the dad in it. So nothing really bad could happen to me. He was not having that at that age. So, it was really fun. And with my sort of connections with working in different projects, a guy I worked with on another title, I just contacted him. His name is Defu, and asked if he'd be interested in drawing up the first, I want to say 9 pages for me. And he did, and it looked cool, and Max loved it. And I said, well, let's try to do a Kickstarter so I can pay him to do the whole, 80 pages of it.
Okay.
And so we did a Kickstarter, and it was successful. And, he drew it all, and I've colored half of it. And so this
is his art.
Yeah, I didn't draw this. I wrote it, and then Defu drew it, and then I colored and lettered it.
Okay, all right. Now, how old was Max when this project got started?
Oh my goodness! We moved up here. He did this. I want to say he was 8.
Wow! All right. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and now he just turned 13. So, I've moved along with it, and I literally, on the weekends now, I've buckled down and I'm coloring, 2 pages a weekend, and it'll be finished. And it was always meant to be like a webcomic, so there weren't any print rewards. There was just some posters that I already had mailed that out and all that stuff. All set. But when I'm finished, then it'll go up online, and then I might try to do another Kickstarter to get it printed.
Okay.
Because once it's all done, I could just send it to the printer, or I'll just print it myself. I haven't really decided.
Well, if there's anything we can do, I mean, we can put it up on our site and push it out to our listeners. Absolutely, because that sounds like just a great project to support. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to looking into it myself a little more. That's great.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. It was a fun thing, and I still every once in a while sort of push it out to some. And kind of when I was doing it, there weren't a lot of publishers that was just doing kid stuff, and now there is. So I actually got a list of publishers that I needed to and wanted to send it to. I put together a couple months ago. So who knows? Maybe it'll get printed.
Well, best of luck to you on that project. That's fantastic. And it always means more when you've got the the father-son kind of tie-in. I always love stuff like that because my bouncing baby boy, who's now 14, he just walked into the studio a moment ago.
He's not a bouncing baby boy.
He's not
anymore.
He's my Titan. He's what 6'3", 220? Yeah, at 14.
He still tries to bounce.
Oh, good Lord. Anyway,
Jules is the one that bounces.
Okay, so Kevin, you mentioned that you had always intended this to be online, and I have to admit, while I'm surrounded by comic book collectors, I am more of a webcomic reader, and I know you had something called pixel strips, which seems to now not be there anymore.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I ever did that was sort of like a comic business or a comic project that I started that a long time ago. Again, probably mid to late 90s. And I just wanted to, I was really into webcomics, and I was coloring some really fun webcomics for people. Like I was coloring Ted Noodleman. It's like a bicycle messenger guy. And I was coloring, what else was I coloring? Sword and the Sorcerer, something. So I was coloring a lot of webcomics. And that was also at the time when there were a few companies, I think like Modern Tales. There was a few companies that were having these communities, and you would subscribe to their website to be able to read the webcomics. And I thought, I know a lot of people in webcomics. I know a lot of people in comics. I'm an entrepreneur as well. I'm going to try putting this thing together. And it worked out really well. I had developer friends because of my love of technology. They put a site together. And for a long time, I had a lot of different artists, a lot of different sites. And then over time, that site got clunky and crazy. And I had it rebuilt probably about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was doing pretty well. I was getting some more artists. And then, the company that I was hosting with kind of went, everything's going up and it's going to cost you a ton of money to host it. And at that point, I wasn't selling anything. I was just posting people's webcomics.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was like, I can't pay X amount a month for something for fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately stopped it. I still own the domain. I still plan on doing something with it at some point.
Mm-hmm. So the dream is not dead.
It's such a great name.
Yeah,
it is a great name.
Well, and see what happened was back when I started it, you couldn't just like throw up a WordPress site and bang out your own webcomic, and I don't mean bang it out because it's a skill and it's work. You couldn't just like boom put it online yourself.
Okay.
And 1, 2, 3 that quickly. Now you put a WordPress thing on it. There's even comic book plugins for WordPress where you can just run your own webcomic and have it set up in an afternoon. And why do people want to have it in one spot or whatever if they can just have it on their own site? So
half the panel just started stroking their chins thoughtfully, going, maybe.
I still don't know how to do any of that stuff. So not me.
Me, I'm right there.
Yeah, no, I'm right there.
I'll stick to the video editing.
Now, with you run the online class, and you have Max and Thorne, and you have a bunch of other pokers in the fire at this point, and you also are working on your own podcast.
Yeah. I mean, again, why have free time when you do something you like?
Exactly.
Right?
See, that's the thing. That's what we're finding ourselves evolving. When we first got started, we were just putting together a comic book convention here in Rochester, and then it is kind of branched out and sprouted out and starting to evolve, and it's taking on a life of its own. So I understand what you're saying, and it's kind of wild, and it's been a while. Now you got what 49, 50 episodes in the can at this point?
I just uploaded the 49th episode the other day, and it's really fun. It's called the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show, and I talk about the backstories and origins of comic book characters and pop culture characters.
Okay.
And I go back to their history, and I always try to read the actual original, even if it's just an online version, to really sort of be able to add some details that you don't just find like maybe on Wikipedia or stuff. And we just talk about stuff. Sometimes I have interviews. I've got to speak to some really amazing creators.
Oh, cool.
And I talked to Jerry Conway the other day.
Okay.
Nice.
He created like all these crazy, every character you could think of, like Firestorm and the Punisher, and
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah. And J.M. DeMatis, I got to speak to him, one of my legend favorite writers. So it's been a lot of fun.
So naturally, you will agree with me that Galactus is not a cloud.
Well, we did see his shadow in that cloud.
Okay.
He gave us that.
All right.
He gave us that.
One of the running gags of our podcast, and Billy has been an avid comic book collector for a very long time, and we early on in our podcast series we went off on the Fantastic Four movies, and the pros and cons and what was good and what was bad, and what was bad section of the conversation was a little heftier, and Billy's primarily concerned with
pet peeve is Galactus is in a cloud.
Yeah, that was his depiction in that one movie.
It isn't?
And it's become almost a tagline for us at this point. He's not a cloud.
We should get bumper stickers.
We need to, yeah. I think we're going to need to have bumper stickers with Galactus is not a cloud.
But you know what? I got to tell you, and I totally agree with you, and the Fantastic Four movies have not been good.
No.
But, especially when I'm doing research for the podcast, when you go back and you look at the costumes and you really look at them, his costume is ridiculous. I mean, his knees are showing. People, he's got these weird boots and his knees are there.
And the helmet and everything. It's all
like a tuning fork. I can see where they were like, how are we ever going to make that look cool? I mean,
the knights who say knee in space.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. They're looking for
That
a
sounds
galactic
like a
shrubbery.
cosplay to do to me.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it's. I would love to see Marvel and Sony get together like they did with Spider-Man and us to finally get a really just Marvel treatment, how they've been doing it these days of Fantastic Four. That would be incredible.
We had a brainstorming podcast a few weeks back where we talked about recasting and casting and what we would say. Who would you think would be the best Reed Richards if Marvel were to get off their tushes and be able to make a Fantastic Four movie?
Oh my God, I have no idea. I'm usually very good at this because when we were kids and they didn't have these movies, my friend and I would just cast them. Like we cast the first Batman movie. We were surprised they wanted Michael Keaton and not our choices, but
what were they
no
thinking?
They didn't, But I don't know. I'm not good at just thinking of an actor. I mean, I watch movies constantly, so I should be able to have something in my head, but I don't.
Well, the correct answer is Billy DeTore.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. As Reed Richards.
Wow,
I'm
nice.
terrible with names. What's he in?
That's me.
What's he in?
I'm in this
He's on the
podcast.
radio.
He's on the radio.
He's our radio
Well,
legend.
there were so many names in the beginning. I've forgotten everybody.
I know. Yes, there is a quiz
He's the
on
person
Monday.
that's keeping us all together.
Yeah. Our engineer extraordinaire.
Well, they did announce
go ahead.
Shazam.
Did they know?
We talked about it.
Is it
Zachary
Levy?
Levi.
From Chuck?
Levi Levy. Yeah.
Levi.
Levi.
likes
We
his
talked about
money.
that during that podcast.
Yes, that's who we wanted as Reed Richards. That's who we finally
is that
agreed
what we
on.
were? And
Yeah,
Yvonne
that's what
But now he's
Strahovski.
going to be Shazam.
Okay, but that works.
Shazam.
And that works.
He can do both.
All right, so Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks
He can
show.
do
Where can we
anything he
find
wants.
that, Kevin?
Well, you can go over to heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com.
Okay.
Of course, you can go over to and you can listen to it there. And I post all the pages of that I'm talking about over on the website, so it's kind of neat. But the best way is go to iTunes or Stitcher and just subscribe, and then you'll get it in your whatever you use to listen to your podcast every week.
Schnazzy.
And usually it's every Monday. I've been slipping. We had a crazy summer of traveling, family traveling this summer, and kicked my butt. The jet lag. Multiple jet lags.
Oh, I feel your pain, brother.
Yeah, I've been off a little bit, but now I'm getting back on track. I've got some really amazing interviews. I've got, I'm so excited about that I'll be doing next week.
Mm-hmm.
So you can head either place, and then of course the comic book grading thing is at learnandgradecomicbooks.com.
Do you have like a master site, like one ring to rule them all kind of a thing, where it's like you can go to this one spot and then you have links to all the different projects you're on?
I'm working on that right now. Actually.
Okay.
Funny you say it. Yeah, it's gonna be kevinvolo.com.
Okay.
And it'll have links to everything on it. Now, if you go there now, kevinvolo.com, it's going to say under construction, as it is. But yeah, you'll be able to branch off into all the other sites and
beautiful.
And check things out. Yeah, the Learn to Grade Comic Books course, learnandgradecomicbooks.com, it's got like 30 plus videos, like over 8 hours of content, tons of photos, and the whole thing's $49.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
So, yeah, no, I didn't make it to make $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just wanted to get the information out there and pay for some of the costs. Of it. So, but it's pretty neat. We got a Facebook page and all that, so you can check it out if you just search for Learn to Grade Comic Books on Facebook, and people post there. It's nice. It's fun.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, and I appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun chatting with you. And we're looking forward to keeping an eye on your projects as they unfold. I definitely, now that I know about Max and Thorne, I'm going to kick back and catch up with that one.
I actually saw Max and Thorne done out as panels at SUNY Poly when he had an exhibit there for Comic-Con.
Oh, very cool.
So that's
right. That's right.
Yeah, it's very neat to actually hear the person who did it. So
nice.
So thank you.
Well, no problem. Thank you.
Well, again, this has been Kevin Volo, and I'm just I have to harp on it, Instructional Technologist Extraordinaire, because I just love that freaking title. I love it. Look for him as soon at kevinvolo.com, among all of his other projects, learntogradecomicbooks.com, Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks.com, and 3D printed props on YouTube. And just a lot of stuff. You've got your fingers in everything, and it sounds like a great creative effort, and I appreciate your time today, man.
No problem. I appreciate the call. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Yay.
So for Billy and Tanya,
Bye,
for Chris,
everybody.
and for myself, and for Sherry and Dolly and these guys over here, this has been Monkey Business, a product of the Flower City Comic-Con and the Mighty Monkey Corporation. Coming at you June 9th and 10th of 2018 at the Floriano Rochester Riverside Convention Center. Follow us on Facebook, love us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Spreaker.com. Look for FC3's Monkey Business. We love you. We miss you. We'll see you next week.